Hey everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here, and some of us of a certain age can remember when it was 150 years in the sesquicentennial, and guys around Houma were all walking around with beards, and women had long dresses. But now it's 200 years, so everybody that's around now will have, when it's 250, you'll be able to talk about it. But this is a great time. They're putting on a great show, and everybody's remembering 200 years of governing in Terrebonne Parish. And governing Good Earth is this Thursday. That'll be August 11th at 6 p.m. at the Houma Civic Center. And here to talk about it, of course, Reggie Dupree. Reggie, you're not talking about levees this time. Well, you can, but the Terrebonne Parish Levee and Conservation District. Also, he's been, of course, in parish government for a long time. Hunt Downer Jr., he, of course, is an attorney, former legislator, retired Major General from the U.S. Army and the National Guard. Andrew Thaddeus Fungi, retired judge of the Houma City Court. So all you guys, thanks so much for being here, man. And yeah, you guys have been pillars of our community for a long time. But let's talk about what we might talk about on Thursday and going all the way back 200 years now.
Yeah. Want to go first? Or?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. People don't realize, and until we got into it, we learned a lot of history. Terrebonne Parish wasn't a parish when we first became a state. We were part of the county of Orleans, or the Orleans Territory. And eventually it was subdivided, and when we, 1822, became our own parish. So our parish government really started formally in 1822. Prior to that, we were governed, but as part of a conglomerate of multiple what are now parishes out of the county of Orleans, which I believe was made up of, at that time, what would now become 5 parishes.
So that whole area in New Orleans, was that kind of maybe a church thing? Or why were we part of Orleans, or were we just a suburb at that time?
Well, we weren't necessarily a suburb. It's just, understand, all of a sudden, 1803, the Louisiana Purchase.
Right.
And New Orleans was really the predominant reason for the Louisiana Purchase because of the port and its access to all a part of 16 states. And it narrowed down, and here we are with Terrebonne Parish, formally recognized and formed and cut away and geographically, I guess, mapped out to the best they could in 1822.
Right. Yeah. So we were right from the beginning, the police juror.
Right. So the founder and father of Terrebonne Parish was Senator Henry S. Thibodeau. He lived in what is now St. Bridget Church area. He owned property from south of Thibodeau all the way into Houma, large landowner. And he served as a state senator in the our geographic area, which was about 3 or 4 parishes, was Lafourche and Territory, part of the Orleans area Hunt just talked about. So he passed some legislation in 1822 carving Terrebonne Parish out, and that's how we began with appointed a police jury, a first parish judge, who served as also the president of the police jury. So, you know, like I said, if you're passing on Main Street, just north of US 90, on the halfway cemetery, you will see a brown sign, which we probably all passed hundreds of times. Well, you're going to see that's where he's buried, and as a historic marker there showing him as the father of the parish.
Was the boundaries about the same?
Yeah, the boundaries are pretty much the same. Now, there's been some legislation between us and Lafourche over the years, but pretty much the parish you have now was what it was. We were that western area west of the Bayou Lafourche.
And population at that time?
Population, the only population figures we could figure, the first census after we became a parish in 1830 was 2,121 people, and that included about a little over 1,000 slaves. So there was 2,100 people living in what is now Terrebonne Parish in 1830, and we have a copy of the 1830 census. We'll have it up there on Thursday.
So a total of about 3,000, a little over 3,000 people when you count the slaves.
No, that's with the slaves. It was 2,100.
2,100. So half was slaves.
That's right. It's approximately half.
Wow, that's incredible. That is amazing number. So, Judge, when you look at the governing of the thing, what can we learn from history, and how did it evolve over time?
Well, I'm going to do the segment on the judiciary, and we were part of the 2nd Judicial District, which we had been part of before as part of Lafourche, and it included St. James Parish, Assumption, Lafourche, and Terrebonne when we became. And the judges were appointed, and it was sort of interesting when I did some research. They sat in Terrebonne Parish on the first Monday of June and the first Monday of December. Now, I'm sure if they had something to finish, they did, but that was it. We also, Reggie alluded to the fact that there was at that time parish judges. And one of the reasons for having them was that if a regular district court judge wasn't here, a parish judge could sign orders in that person's absence. And so, you didn't have a situation where you couldn't get documents signed.
So like twice a year, though, they would meet.
Basically, twice a
And
year.
and who was the like sheriff, or how did they hand out as far as crime and punishment, or did they not have any?
Well, I don't know. One of the first things that they built, that they built, besides the courthouse, besides the jail, was they paid $17 for some stocks.
Oh, stocks.
Stocks.
Put you in the stocks.
Yeah, put you in stocks, and at one time with them juveniles, I thought of putting that
Yeah,
in front
yeah.
of city court, but I mean,
I bet you
what was
did.
appropriate then may not be appropriate now.
Each of you are going to talk about specific guys and kind of what they meant to this government, right?
Right. So I'm going to start out as the first presenter, and of course I'm going to bring up the founder of the parish, Senator Henry Thibodeau, back in the early 1800s, 1822. He was the only person to serve as governor of the state. He was appointed. He was Senate president. Now, notwithstanding, we know somebody else wanted to be, but unfortunately doesn't make it. And then I will also end my presentation on talking about Bubba Lines. Mr. Lines was the police jury president 50 years ago. He was the last mayor of Houma and the first parish president in Terrebonne Parish. Then on retirement, he moves to the North Shore and gets appointed as the interim mayor of Mandeville, the only person in this state to serve mayor of two separate towns. So I'm going to end with him, and then we'll go with
So we almost had a governor. So we've had one governor, but we almost had a couple.
Yeah. What's really interesting was when we started researching, we found things we weren't aware of. For example, legislators who served. We had always thought Allen Ellender was the first Speaker of the Louisiana House of Representatives, followed by Morris A. Lottinger, and then myself in 1996. But in researching, we had a gentleman named Duncan Cage, C-A-G-E, who was elected to the state legislature from Terrebonne Parish in 1864. Only served 4 years, 1864 to
Couple tough years
1868.
right there.
Just a couple of years ago.
No, but tough years.
Tough years, right?
1864.
Yes.
Had a little something going on then.
Yes, and we found, and he actually got elected speaker 1865 to 1867, served for 2 years, almost 3 as speaker. And we have a proceeding from that first legislative session. It's in both English and French.
Wow.
And it was tough time, and Cage was from Terrebonne, and actually his family at that time owned all of the land where the airport is and where Woodlawn Ranch is.
I'll be there.
So
Yeah,
we
again,
find
I'd
that
never
out.
heard that name.
No.
Yeah.
And he's actually buried in in St. Francis Cemetery, right around the
Magnolia.
corner. Huh?
Magnolia.
It's Magnolia. I'm sorry, Magnolia.
And then, Judge, you're going to look at some of the judiciary members.
Yes, I'm going to focus on judges who have served here, but I'm also going to highlight two. Judge Butler, who served from 24 to 42, a very interesting person, and very varied political career. And also, the judge that followed him was Judge Watkins Sr., J. Lewis Watkins Sr., who also had a very, very extensive background, involvement in community. He served from 42. He had retired in January of 66. But I'm going to mention a lot of the other judges, current judges who from Terrebonne have served on the First Circuit and also the Eastern District of Federal Court.
We touched on it, but not really. But how did the Civil War, how did that affect parish government?
Well, it was really interesting. When you get into it, you start reading. It affected parish government in that there was a change in some of the membership and who could be eligible. But it also went to local government, to the city government, and then went on to state government. And then it's actual interesting, in 1865, Cage, who was a plantation owner here in Terrebonne, as Speaker of the House, offered a resolution asking the President of the United States to accept Louisiana back into the Union.
I'll be darned. Yeah, that's so interesting. And again, when you're talking about 200 years ago, almost 50% of the population was slaves here.
Yes.
Right.
I did not know that number either.
Just think of it. We had 2,000 people then, and we now have 100 and what, 110,000.
Right.
Cage, in his first resolution, resolution number 1 was to appropriate the money to cover the sessions. It was $100,000. When I was speaker, it was 40 or 50 million.
Right.
So in 200 years, but look at the population of Louisiana now versus then. And
Sure.
we have to, and I think what we're going to try to do is give everyone the perspective where we were.
Right.
As the old saying goes, you have to know where you've been, to know where you are, to know where you're going. We all know where we are, but when you find out where you've been, you say, it's like shock and awe.
Right. And yeah, it is. Reggie, you know, the Houma Indians, right? Or
That's
the
right. And
indigenous people, were they included in that 2,000?
That is not listed on there. I don't think they were.
Right.
They were not. I don't think the census counters went and counted them. You know, the first we had in 1873, we had a African-American mayor for the city of Houma, Dupart. Now, one thing that the Civil War did do, they started in 1860 building a new courthouse, but it wasn't until 1875 till it was finished. So because of the Civil War, you know, it stopped, and it was actually under Mayor Dupart's administration where they finished that
When they
courthouse.
rebuilt it. Right.
And what we found in going through, of course, during that time period following the Civil War, Louisiana was actually used as the model for Reconstruction
Oh, wow.
because of the manner of the people, their personality, and the way they all kind of work together.
Right.
Remember, you're down here. You got to work together.
Right. And New Orleans has always been the free people of color, has always been our leader in that board as well. So, guys, so much. I appreciate it and can't wait to see what's going on Thursday. So, again, that's Thursday at the Houma Civic Center. It's Governing Good Earth. We'll be right back with more Bayou Time after this.